Hello, my name is Razvan Preotu. I'm a chess grandmaster from Canada, and my major is computer science. Hello, everyone. My name is Razvan Preotu, and I'm going to look over the game against Stu Buliak Ibamni from the Southwest Open. This was the final round game. We both had 5 points out of 8, and if either one of us won, we'd tie, guarantee tie for 4th, 5th. So for that reason, I guess he started with the bird opening to get me out of my preparation or something, which I was happy to see. D5. So I just played normal moves. I didn't want to play E5 on move 1, which is more theoretical. Bishop F5, developing the piece. So F4. So his idea is to control the E5 square and gain some space on the king side. But it's also weakening, so knight D7. So I developed the knight to D7 because if I went to C6, he would be able to play bishop B5 and trade the bishop for the knight, which is White's idea, to gain control over E5. So now if White plays bishop B5, I have C6. E6, knight C3. Looks a bit unusual to develop the knight in front of the bishop. H6. So this gives the bishop the H7 square in case, knight H4 happens. H3. So this is a pretty ambitious plan. White wants to play G4, G5 eventually, attack on the king side. And here I tried to take advantage of the weakening of the G3 square by playing knight E4. But perhaps it was just better to play slowly, play C6, just keep developing. Because in the game, White got a lot of White gained a lot of time for development. He played G4. I went back with the bishop to H7, but an interesting possibility was bishop E7, trying to take advantage of the E1, H4 diagonal. I considered it, but it seemed too complicated to, I didn't really want to go into it. So, for example, I was looking at lines where White takes the bishop, so G takes F5. Also possible is knight takes C4, bishop takes, D3, check, king D2, take, where White's okay, but Black's also perfectly fine. So the more interesting variation is if he takes the bishop, check, king E2, knight G3 check, king F2, takes, king G2. So Black won the exchange, but the knight and bishop are not very well placed. And White has all his pieces developed. So some possible lines. So here I didn't know how to evaluate this, so I didn't want to go for this stuff. So possible lines, if king F7 to protect G7, E6, White can take H4, bring the queen, and bring the rook. And already this looks like pretty good compensation. And here, wait, here? Queen G4 here. Well, yeah, okay, this is, White has a pawn for the exchange, but maybe White wants to keep the queens on to try to attack the king. That's also possible, of course, but okay. So that's why I just went back with the bishop to H7 here. But now I was able to gain the bishop pair advantage, which is usually an advantage, but White was able to gain a lot of useful moves like G4, D3, and the rook's already on F1, so it's developed. and white plans to castle on the queen side and push the pawns on the king side. So this idea was kind of not the best because white gained a lot of time. Bishop e7, queen d2, knight c5, castle, and now typical for opposite side castling positions, you should attack the opponent's king. So the idea is to play a4, open the a file for the rook. He played queen f2. So quick tactic, what's wrong with a3 with the idea of meeting a4 with b4?
Slung direction.
Yeah, because there's this tactic with fork on b3. So black wins the pawn on d3, which is what.
Quickly, what if before? The bishop takes. Bishop takes.
Yeah, black wins the exchange, right? So he went queen f2. Interesting was knight e2, opening the bishop, and then just pushing the pawns. And one key idea is the queen has the c3 square, which could pose some problems on the diagonal. So for example, queen c3 here, and black has to play like f6, and it's pretty unclear still, but white probably has some white's attack is probably a bit more dangerous. But he wanted to play e4 instead of h4, g5 to close the bishop on h7. I played a4, continuing the plan, f5, take. And yeah, here now white plans to play e4, and then maybe take on d5 or play like e5. So I played bishop f6, but it was probably just better to allow white to do this in castle, because black can just play solid move c6 and try to use the a file, so like rook a6, queen a8 ideas maybe. And it's not clear how white continues, because it's hard to play h4, g5 because f5 would be hanging. And it's hard to play e5 too, f5 would be hanging. So yeah, it's still very unusual and unclear. But I played bishop f6, so the idea was to meet e4 with d4 and then e5, so gaining space on the king side. And I was looking like h4 to play g5, and I was thinking like these types of positions is unclear because I'm threatening like queen a8, rook a2, bishop a3 ideas, and there's no direct way for white to break through on the king side. Like if white tries to like infiltrate with the queen, just bishop f6, it's not a problem. But so that's why my opponent didn't play e4, I think. He went d4 instead, kicking the knight away. I had the option to go to a6 or d7. I chose d7 because it's closer to the king, like it defends maybe some important squares like f6. But knight a6 with the idea of knight b4, knight a2 is also possible, like is more aggressive, I guess. And the knight on b4 is very well placed, like because it really stops white from opening this diagonal, because c2 would be hanging. So that would slow white's attack as well. But I went to d7, e4, h4 was also possible to go for g5, c6 to defend the d5 pawn. So now f5's hanging, white should take on e6. And here white's able to play g5, but black opened the bishop on f5, which secures the king side enough. So it's still okay. So he went e4 to go for e5. And this looks already kind of scary because white's pawns are really like moving forward. But it turns out it's not really a big deal. Like the computer also thinks that black's perfectly fine. I castled. He went rook g1. So white has several options here. He can take taking e6 doesn't really is not very challenging because it opens the bishop, and black can get some play in the center now. E5, bishop e7 is also not really a problem because now f5's hanging, and black can still get play with c5 because f6 is never really that big of a problem because it's very well defended, like the queen, bishop, knight, and it also opens the bishop. So black's just in time with counterplay in the center. So in the game, he went to rook g1 to prepare like h4, g5. Here I went for b5 to challenge the knight on c3, which defends e4. The computer at first recommended to take the pawn on e4, then take f5, but that looked very risky because now the bishop on b2 is potentially can get open with d5, and the g file also gets open. So the line is like take, queen takes, king b1. So d5 right away doesn't work because rook a1 check, and black's winning because like the king is too exposed. So king b1, bishop here, d5, queen f5, and black's like for now was able to block the g file, but it might be difficult in the future to do so. Like white might have ideas of moving the queen, playing knight h4, something like that. So I didn't want to open the bishop on b2 at all. That's why I kept the structure the same. So I went b5. So this threatens b4, undermining white's center. He took on d5. e5 is met with b4, and we can get a transposition. This is what happened in the game. So takes b4. Again, I didn't really like opening the g file and playing knight b6 because, again, white gets like long-term pressure with the open files and the potential to open the bishop on b2 now because the knight on d5, like it's not as stable as a pawn, I guess, on d5. So I didn't like that. And I thought after b4, knight e4, take f6, take, I should be okay now because my knight has the e4 square, and I've like permanently like blocked the bishop on b2. So I didn't think I was in any danger here anymore. Like before it looked scary, but now I thought, okay, I'm doing pretty good now. And I was also gaining like a time advantage, so that helped a lot too. Played knight e5, knight e4, queen e1. And here, how would you continue the attack? Would you defend the pawn on b4 or?
Rook a2.
Yes. The pawn is not very important. It's more important to activate the major pieces. So for example, queen d6 was possible with the idea of defending the pawn, but white's able to trade off the knights, and the king becomes a lot safer now, so white's fine. So rook a2 is actually a lot stronger. White should take the pawn to bring the queen closer. Queen a8, so rook a1 mate is threatened, take queen takes, so king b1's forced. And then the idea is queen a6 to triple on the a file, and then I can either take on b2 or go rook a1 check. So already there's like a lot of nasty threats coming up. White had several options to try to defend against this. In the game, he went c4, which gives the king an escape square on c2. Rook g2 first was possible, just like defending, planning to move the c-pawn, and also it just defends the second rank. But black still has very strong attack going on. So for example here, c4, take, and then king h8 is very strong, just getting out of the diagonal. And ideas of knight d6, bishop g8, like attacking c4, which is very weak.
Didn't you take on b2 after rook g2?
After rook g2?
Yeah. And then okay. Is there something like that?
No, just rook b1, and then the king escapes to c1. Yeah.
So maybe queen a4.
Yeah, but that might be a repetition if I move queen c8.
Yeah, and then queen c6.
Or,
Wait for a minute.
okay, or queen b7 might be better, right? So I have a7 square. But yeah,
Queen c6 still is there. And then come
queen e7.
And then rook b1.
Or rook b1 right away.
Then rook
Queen
a1.
a4 again.
With
Queen
a6
c6
and
and then rook b1.
And yeah, the king escapes to c1, so doesn't quite work.
Okay, repeat, go
Yeah,
back to
queen
b4,
a4, go b4.
and then play rook b1. That's smarter.
Knight d3, also possible. So here's a nice idea for black. If white plays c3 instead of c4, which like weakens the structure, g6 is very strong, trying to open the bishop right away. And one nice line is if white tries to escape with the king, can anyone find a tactical refutation here? It's not very easy. So
King h8.
something more direct.
King d7.
Any ideas other than moving the king?
Knight a7.
Rook B2.
Oh, knight f2. Good job, Casper. Deflecting the knight on d3.
Wait, so why g6? Why not do it?
So here's the key point. Queen a2.
On g7 for the king?
And now here, if the pawn was on g7, white can play king b1. And then it's not clear how to like mate, right? Because there's also back rank issues. There's no rook a2, queen b8 check. But now, because the diagonal is potentially open, that's not possible.
Very nice you saw it during the game.
Wait,
This is analysis, so.
King b1. Can you play bishop takes a 5 check
Sorry?
in that final position that you showed? Can't you, with the pawn on g7, king b1, you have bishop f5 and rook a2?
Uh,
Bad boy. Actually, maybe king h8 then was better. So you play rook a2 directly and you can bishop g8.
yeah, rook g7, rook g1. It might be not as clear.
What rook do you want?
King f7,
Oh,
Because the rook would be hanging, right? The king attacks the rook.
king takes.
okay, so queen b8 first and then do that.
But does this win?
Yeah, this wins. So we're arguing why not knight f2 right away, but it doesn't work. Like if we can, it's right. So for
In the game, I will just play king h8, just in case.
instead of g6,
Yeah,
or,
because I mean, g6 prepares to take, but you still need to play king h8.
yeah, they're both good moves. Yeah.
If we're already discussing the queen endgame later, maybe h5 and h4.
Okay.
Say it's h3.
So in the game, he went c4, and now I chose like a very materialistic idea instead of like bringing the rook over, which is pretty normal, right? I wanted to, in the game, I went knight f2 to try to win this h pawn, with the idea of playing h5 and undermining like the pawn chain on g4 f5. But it was better just to play rook a8 and similar ideas as before, like attack the c4 pawn. And yeah, black's attack is obviously really strong. But I didn't like that the bishop was still blocked in, so I thought, okay, let's get that piece into the attack. So knight f2. He went rook d2. So rook d1 threatens a nice tactic. So what's wrong with taking on h3? Yeah, so it'd be forced checkmate. But black plays rook a8 first. And yeah, and black's able to win h3 anyway because if white plays queen c3 defending, well, okay, here white has to give the exchange because the queen has to protect the bishop otherwise rook b2, queen a2, and the queen can't go to c2, right? So it can lead to like a complicated position where white probably gains e4 back, so I'll have 2 pawns and a piece for the exchange. So it's unclear. So he went rook d2. I took the pawn. Rook c1. I think rook e1 was better, just because the rook would be more actively placed. So rook e8, rook e3, and white's able to defend the queen side now. There's no ideas like rook a1 check can just be met with king c2, and yeah, it's still unclear how black's able to get the bishop in, because now queen e7 is also possible in the future for white.
So who is better then?
Computer says it's equal, but I'm just going to say it's complicated. Like,
Would you prefer white or black or none?
I'd still prefer black after just like knight g5, because white always has to worry about like tactics on the a file. But objectively speaking, white's probably okay, just because, again, the bishop can't participate in the attack, and queen e7 ideas will be annoying, like if the knight ever moves back to e4. Like, already here, I was very happy with my position. Like, I'm on the offensive, and my opponent was getting lower and lower on time, while I still had plenty of time remaining. So I feel like the game was already going in my favor. Like the momentum was going in my favor. So he went rook c1. And now the idea h5 to open the bishop. So like the bishop that was like sleeping the entire game is gonna finally be opened, which will cause white serious problems. He went knight d7. I think rook e2 was like the last real chance. So threatening, it's already really bad. So threatening queen f8, so rook e8, strong, just guarding e7 instead of rook a8. Rook e1, knight f4. So here there are some tricks. So what's wrong with taking on g4? Why isn't this just winning, for example? Knight g6, yeah. And then there's problems with the back rank. So that's why knight f4. Yeah, g5 is a nice move.
This was played in the game?
This is analysis. That's why I'm saying rook e2 was a better move, like to keep the knight on e5. In the game, white tried knight d7, rook a, knight c5. So the idea is to play knight a4 to block the a file. But the problem is queen d6, and this pins the knight. So black gains the tempo, and now like these pawns are just gonna fall because white can't afford to let the bishop give this check, right? So already here, black's winning. The computer suggests knight b8, which is very, not very human. But the idea is to bring the knight to e7 to defend f5. But I think in the game, black would just win anyway. But this is the best defense. So after knight c5, queen d6, I was already thinking I'm winning. And here he had like only a few minutes left. So the rest was pretty straightforward. White can't really defend the pawns now. So he tried rook e5. And now what's like the cleanest way to win? Queen takes? It would be nice if it worked, but no. Anyone? Knight g1? That's interesting, but something more direct.
Maybe c6 to play f6.
Something more direct. Yeah, because white can't defend the rook, right? There was a lot of winning moves, obviously, but this is the most straightforward. And then, okay, he tried knight a4, so I have to give the exchange, but now I'm just up like 3 pawns on the king side with white still having an exposed king. So the rest was just technique, I guess. So if he takes g3, like take a4, it's bad, so take c4. But now I just promote the g pawn, basically. And here he resigned. So this was thank you. Yeah, this was, I really liked this game. Like, it was interesting, and I think I played pretty well. And it allowed me to tie for 4th, 5th in the Southwest Open, so which was nice. And it was a good way to finish the tournament. Thank you.